Now that we've met students from the Republic of the Congo, Brazil, China, Palestine, and Mexico, let's see if what they expected to find when they came to the US is what really happened. A useful model to frame experiences in living in a new place is called culture shock. This is a process that helps explain what you might experience when you move from a culture that is different from your own. It is an emotional journey of adaptation. Culture shock also explains how living in a foreign place can impact and broaden your sense of personal identity. Culture shock is usually described as a process that starts with moving to a new place and literally becoming infatuated with all the cultural differences you find. Sometimes this is called the honeymoon phase. This is the euphoria of discovering a new place. Students who decide to study abroad are initially thrilled to realize they have achieved a lifelong goal. Dalia from Palestine had an initial opportunity to visit the US in 2014 for a program at SUNY and recalls how her expectations about what the year-long program would be like mostly came from watching one of her favorite US TV shows, Friends, while still in Palestine.
All my perceptions of the US and how they met in reality, and how my older perspectives of the US met with the reality of what I met in person in that year. So coming there the first time, I remember just recalling from the Friends show. It's, as I said, it's like my favorite TV show, The Friend, or just Friend. And I just learned a lot of English from this show and from other also American movies. As I said also before, the American movies and the American drama, it's a big deal in the because a lot when growing up, when I was younger, I would watch a lot of American movies, a lot of drama, a lot of action, all types of American movies, and basically everything I learned from the American culture was from the movie.
Cleves loved coming to Temple, but quickly realized that America was different than images he had from the movies and TV he saw at home in the Republic of the Congo.
Talking about culture shock. Yeah, it was, it is not easy, to come in a country where you've never been before. It was like the first country I've been to, and people were kind of different. But my mindset was that it was a dream. It's a dream come true. No matter what difficulty I would meet, I'm gonna face it. I thought, when you outside the US, especially in the third world countries, you would think America is paradise. That's why some people, they just want to immigrate without doing research. It's like when you get to America, you're a millionaire. Every American is Bill Gates. Every American is Jeff Bezos, right? Every American is Michael Jackson. Every American is Tom Cruise. Every American is Hillary Clinton. I really didn't have that mindset, but I thought, America was like a perfect model, perfect social model compared with some other countries. And when I got here, because I was part of the Temple language program that was ILP back then, we had, and I was lucky to have, like friends from all over the world, because with the Fulbright programs, we had like 50 people, like students from 15 countries. So all the 15 students decided to, discover Philadelphia.
Problems we too easily accept as inescapable are new experiences from students from other parts of the world, and not what they expected to find. This is when the second phase of culture shock can set in. This phase is what we are labeling as a transition. Here we can see how these students are surprised or even frustrated by their new experiences in Philadelphia.
As part of the ILP program, we had the community service class. The class was taught by Professor Miriam Oppenheimer. It was very nice. She would take us to do some community service, like volunteering in different organizations. And the first one was the Church of the Advocate, which is in North Philadelphia. And the first thing I noticed was that some people were hungry. Are they Americans? She's like, yes, but why they in need? I'm a Fulbright scholar. I'm getting paid by the State Department. Why can't they, you know? I thought America was like the superpower, economic power, like #1 in the world. Why they hungry? But a lot of people made like bad choices in their lives. They find themselves in this situation. So people trying to help. Like, this is not fair. Sometimes you would see normal people, somebody who looks normal, but who is homeless. When you live outside the US, you can't even imagine that this is possible. In the church, somebody who's American with an American passport, starve, that is crazy. But by contrast, you would go to another neighborhood, you would see like big houses, you know, some opulent families, you know, living the life of paradise as people really think, you know. It is a really huge contrast, and one of the things I noticed was the fact that Philadelphia was, you know, split in different neighborhoods, some poor neighborhoods, some rich neighborhoods and all that. And the most shocking experience was when I went to Kensington. Some of our professors didn't really want to talk about it, but when I started at Klein College with Professor Washington and May the autumn, they took us to Kensington. That was shocking. That was, damn, I'm like, how is it possible that people live like that? And most of the people I saw at the Church of the Advocate were Black people. I'm like, okay, the first thing I thought is, oh, maybe Black people are poor, you know? And when I went to Kensington, it was like white people, Black people, Latinos. I'm like, everyone is. Not only Black people, not only Latinos, brown people, but also white people. What's going on? And they told me about the opioid crisis, and they told me about a phenomenon I didn't know before. It was like gentrification. They're taking people's houses to build huge skyscrapers, and, you know, people becoming homeless. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what's going on here. And one thing I learned in America is like, when you work harder and you make good choices, you can be successful. Because I talk to people who, to me, you know, look successful, seem successful. I had a conversation with Mr. Williams, who's the director of NBC 10 and Telemundo. It's like, if you make like the right decision in your life, you'll be successful. But if you make the wrong decision, you won't be successful. That's why I understood some people can be homeless, you know, can seek for food in churches just because they're on drugs. When you're on drugs, all your money goes towards drugs, like heroin, like cocaine, crack, and all that. And there's no way you can get your things together. There's no way. But if you decide not to do drugs, not to be too much alcohol, you can drink alcohol, but not too much, and know what you want, some of the opportunities you have in this country, you can be successful.
Culture shock can also occur when our international students miss their families who are now much further away. Luiza from Brazil comes from a culture where family is very important. We all know what it is like to move away from home for the first time. Moving away from parents as well as your country and culture can be jarring. Let's hear again from Luiza, who talks about what it is like to leave her family and friends in Brazil to come to Temple.
Here in Brazil, I can say that we're very close to our families. It takes a while for us to move out from our places, like with our parents and everything. While you're in college, like, you usually still live with your parents. And once I got to the United States, of course, I wasn't living with my parents anymore. And just like seeing like so many people who were essentially like very independent from day one, or just had that different context of family or that different idea of what it meant to go to college, I feel that that was like a big difference. Of course, it felt to me that I was experiencing that before I was even ready for that, because I made the choice to, to study abroad. But the experience of moving out, living with roommates and everything else, just being away from their families, was just very natural for anyone else. And I guess like for me and my Brazilian peers, like that was another sort of like milestone that we had to conquer, I guess. So the actual like family context was very different.
Luiza also talks about everyday experiences in the US and how they were smaller instances of culture shock. Here, she talks about how eating with friends and relaxing in restaurants is different than what she was used to in Brazil.
My sophomore year was a time that I already had gotten a gist of what life was like. I was already on top of the game when it came to like studying and knowing people. Very different from freshman year, of course, that everything is just amazing and you're discovering stuff. So I didn't really have that sense of discovery anymore. I was just really trying to make the best out of that experience with what I had. And I feel that that was when I really got like a true sense of the reality that I was in. Just understanding that people could sometimes think differently than I did, or people wouldn't sometimes be, for instance, as welcoming as I thought they should, because from my own experience in my country, people are always very warm and welcoming, but then sometimes you're just ordering something at a restaurant and then the person is just like, doesn't really care about what you think, and you just wants you to order stuff really quick and just leave that table so they can have someone else sit there. When I'm in Brazil, like I take so long at lunches or dinners, and like no one wants to give you the check unless you ask them for, and then like that sort of thing was very different in terms of like social relations. That was culture shock, I feel like, because there was like some sort of disapproval. On my end, there was some sort of, this is a little off and I don't like it as much. I feel a little uncomfortable in this situation, but okay, like I'm still here. It's my second year of college. I still have like halfway to go, and you start dealing with it in a better way. I feel that the social relationships were a big culture shock by the middle of like my experience in the university.
After these students go through the honeymoon phase and also work through the frustrations of the transition phase, they begin to adjust and experiment with some unfamiliar things. Adjustments can include new fun experiences for these students, and a good example is Halloween. Dalia, who is from Palestine, talks about how she embraced student life and got involved in all kinds of student activities, many of which were a first for her.
Later on in my English learning program, I studied a lot about the American culture. So I learned about Christmas, I learned about Thanksgiving, I learned about the different types of food also they might have on their table. So coming to the US in 2014, I did have some expectations, of course, but in the reality, it was completely different, just like to be there, to live there. The different thing was the amount of parties they have, the amount of ceremonies, the social relationships between the students also in the university. I remember this event was the homecoming, and it was like a big party ceremony that was hosted in the basketball court in the university to welcome all the new students. And it was amazing because you just feel like, oh, you're blending in already from the first day you're there. And I met a lot of students from everywhere. I just remember it was very interesting. Another big ceremony we had was for Halloween, which I never celebrated Halloween in Palestine. So coming here to the US in 2014, I was like, oh, what am I gonna wear for a costume? And I was discussing this with my friends, and apparently it was a big deal. So we ended up, me and my friend, we had like black dresses with masks, kind of dramatic, I guess. But we loved it. So we went to the ceremony, we celebrated the Halloween, and it was a very new experience for me because it was the first time I go to a homecoming. For the first time I go to Halloween ceremony or Halloween party. And that's something I love about American universities. they have a lot of students clubs. So you can find a club about anything. You can find a club about science, literature, sports, but all kinds of sports. And I really love physical activities, so I participated in, my roommate also did. Her name was Cheyenne. I participated with her in the archery club, so I would go with her weekly and we would play archery. We did a lot of hiking. We lived upstate in New York, so there was big spaces, wide spaces, good mountains to do hikes there. So I remember one time I went hiking in the winter and it was icy. This was the first time also I go hiking to an icy landscape, I would say. It was quite scary. I was so scared because it was very slippery, but it was a phenomenal experience. I loved it.
Coming from the Middle East, Halloween, hiking in snow and ice were novel and exciting experiences for Dalia, and participating fully allowed her to be part of the culture at the university. Dalia was also adventurous in trying on a more Western style of student dress.
So one of the things I realized, so coming to the US helped me actually learn more about myself as well, how much I love dresses, because where I come from a conservative society, conservative community. So basically we have to dress modestly, which we have to cover our bodies and just be modest with our bodies and the way we represent ourselves. So coming to the US, I saw all the girls wearing dresses, wearing short dresses, wearing short jeans, and I felt like I want to try this. I finally at the end of the second semester, when it was finally spring, I decided that okay, I bought all these short dresses that I would love to try, and I finally had the courage. It felt so new, but also I loved it, and the dress was very light, so I just felt like very light in the air, just very light walking in the university. Since then, I started wearing a lot of dresses. I understood how much I love dresses, because before I didn't know that I love dresses that much actually, but after 2014, I realized, oh my God, I love dresses, so I'll start wearing them more.
While Dalia was enthusiastic in trying out Western trends and holidays, holding on to her Palestinian identity and promoting a pride and awareness of her home culture with her new friends was equally as important.
I was talking about this with my friends yesterday, is how much I knew I was going to miss Palestine, but how much I missed it more when I came to the US. I started looking for what's the Palestinian organizations in the US, where are the Palestinian communities, what do they live, what do they do? And I think I also joined this cooking Facebook group where Palestinians living abroad, they just post photos of themselves cooking, and I never joined a Palestinian cooking group in Palestine, but when I came to the US, of course I joined them because I wanted to feel connected. And I also, I'm going to show you this. So I got this with me from Palestine. This is Palestinian embroiderment.
Oh, very elegant.
Yeah, I love black and red. Oh, of course we have different colors. They have become different colors. But the idea of the embroiderment, because we have our traditional clothing, it comes with embroiderment. So black and red, they're the main colors.
Beautiful.
But it comes in also different colors. So I have this with me, of course, all the time. So this is it's a caricature. It's a political caricature drawn by Najil Ali. He was a caricature, a Palestinian intellectual and activist. And this caricature is named Hamdallah. And everybody in Palestine knows Hamdallah and have Hamdallah, this caricature, whether as a necklace or on a t-shirt or in so many ways. What else? I got something else here, nice. The Palestinian app. Have it with me. I always. And the last thing I have with me too. Here it is.
Ooh, look at that! Wow, wow, that's pretty special.
Palestinian hatta. I have it as a blanket, but it's also represents the Palestinian culture and the Palestinian cause. So basically, this is like a representation for nationality, for I would say like revolution, for belonging to the country.
Unlike Dalia, some of the students I spoke with came to the US when they were much younger. Mariana came to the US from Mexico when she was 11. Her family moved to a small town in Nebraska for her father's job. While she was fully bilingual when she arrived, making friends was still difficult. Let's hear what she says about her experience.
It was difficult making relationships with the kids from Nebraska because I still missed my friends from Mexico. So I felt like I didn't want to make friends because I felt like I would forget my friends from Mexico if I started new friendships. It was also difficult because I was like very insecure about my accent. So most of the time I really didn't like want to talk to people. Since it was a very small school, everyone already had like their groups and friends. We were like the only kids in the school. It was like a really small school. There was like not even like 150 kids in that school. So we were the only people from Mexico. Many people like weren't really sure if we would be able to learn in English because, and yeah.
The culture shock curve we have been discussing leads many who spend time in a new place to the phase of adaptation or being bicultural, where you can balance the positive and negative parts of both cultures. Here, Cleves reflects this bicultural perspective when he answers the question I asked him about what he would say to American students.
I think American students have a lot of opportunities. And I know the country is very polarized, especially at this moment, where you have the red and the blue, like Republican, Democrats. Yeah, this is normal, it's political. But being a student in the US to me it's a blessing. You have everything to succeed. You see a lot of people, come from 20,000 miles just to study in your country. And most of them are successful because America is different from their country. You can hate your country, you can decide to drop out, but you don't know what opportunity school like an American degree can give you once you get out. Just go out to see what's going on in the world. You'll be happy to be an American citizen, actually. I know a lot of people are willing to do business with Americans, but with Americans with degrees. You can't just, be. I know a lot of young people here to get on drugs. That's the other problem. But being a student is already an advantage, to know what's going on in the world in your home country. Stay out of drugs, stay out of alcohol. Try to stay focused because the people we see today on the TV, on the news, you can do it. And we also want people here, those who want to replace the current politicians, to be people with values, with family values, with great American values of freedom, because America is the United States of America. It's that unity. And tomorrow, if we can get somebody with those values, not only America would be a great place, but the world, because America's decisions are very important for the world security. Tomorrow, somebody should be there, but that somebody can be you guys.
However, culture shock can have one more final step for the student when they return home to their country. This is called reverse culture shock. It is a familiar pattern for students after the independence of college, moving back with your parents and having to live by their rules and justify what you're doing can be tough. However, just think about what it would be like to go back to your parents in a village in Palestine after attending college in Philadelphia. Dalia talks about going home and being bored due to a lack of diversity of people, as well as how gender stereotypes in her village bothered her.
In 2015, after I finished my academic year, everything was different because back then I used to live with my family. I went back to the university. The university was only 15 minutes away from my family's house, so I used to live with my family. So the idea of going back to living under your parents' supervision was also new to me, because after 1 year of being just very independent about myself, taking care of myself, I come back again to the house and I have to follow the house rules, of course, because I live under their supervision. So I felt like I had to explain myself all the time, just like to take their permission. I was talking about like, okay, can I do this? Can I do that? Also, even the relationship with people. The US was like a diverse place, people from all countries, and then I come back to my hometown and there's literally are all Palestinians. We are basically come from the same city, so there was nothing new about the relationship. Like the dynamics, it was not like as vibrant as it was in the US. So I did miss that a lot, because just like moving from the US to Palestine, where there's people from, we're all the same. I felt like I'm bored. Not like bored, but I was like, I want some action, I want some new culture, I want to talk about new things. I think the academic system is the same, so there's nothing changed about that. When I was in the US, I told you that I learned so much about myself, and I feel like I became much stronger and much more outspoken, which I think this helped me a lot in the university to express myself and to be myself. But also it made me question a lot of things in the society, like the gender roles, for example. It made me think like, do I really want to do this? Like, because I'm a female, do I really want to follow this path? No, I don't want to do this. Do I want to stop riding the bike just because they told me I'm not allowed to ride the bike when I go? Oh, no, I want to challenge this. I started challenging some stereotypes in the society, which was not easy to do.
From this video, I hope you can see how the process of adapting to a new culture, sometimes called culture shock, is illuminated by the stories of students who have come to study at Klein College, Temple University from around the world. In the next video, we're going to explore in more detail how these students confront issues such as discrimination, stereotyping, and gender differences in both their country of origin and here in the United States. As you watch these videos, keep asking yourself, what is surprising about what these students have to say? And also, what resonates with you, even if you haven't had the exact same experience?